Anya Petrov began noticing the tracks before anyone else mentioned the wolves. They appeared along the eastern tree line in early October, pressed shallow into the frost-hardened ground, half hidden beneath fallen needles and thin layers of wind-blown snow. At first she thought they belonged to a stray dog. Greyfall had always had strays, animals that wandered too far from farms or were left behind when owners decided they could not afford another mouth through winter. But these tracks were different, too large, too deliberate. They did not wander. They followed, each step placed with quiet certainty, cutting a narrow path along the ridge that overlooked the valley. Anya noticed them while hauling water back to her cabin one morning, the metal handle of the bucket biting into her palm through her glove. She stopped halfway up the slope and looked down at them, counted the spacing, measured the depth. "Not a dog," she said to herself. The words came out softly, carried away almost immediately by the wind. She stood there longer than she needed to, her breath rising in thin clouds, her body still while her mind worked through what it meant. Wolves had not come this close to Greyfall in years. Not since the winter of '09 when a harsh freeze drove them down from the northern forest and into the outer farms. That had ended badly. For the wolves, for some of the livestock, and for a man who had tried to handle things alone. After that the wolves had stayed away, or the people had learned not to see them. Anya adjusted her grip on the bucket and continued up the hill. She did not mention the tracks that day. Greyfall was not a large settlement, a few dozen homes scattered along the valley floor, with a single road running through it like a line drawn without much care. There was a general store, a small church, a mechanic's shed that doubled as a gathering place whenever the weather turned bad. People there did not ignore problems, but they did not rush toward them either. They waited, watched, spoke only when something became impossible to overlook. By the third day, it had. "They're back," Viktor Sokolov said, leaning against the counter in the general store, his voice low but certain. "I saw them myself this morning, 3, maybe 4, moving along the ridge. A few heads turned. Someone near the back let out a quiet curse. 'Too early,' another man said. 'It's not cold enough yet.' 'Doesn't matter,' Viktor replied. 'If they're coming down now, something's wrong up there.' Anya stood near the door, a small sack of flour in her hands. She listened, didn't speak. 'They'll start taking animals,' someone added. 'They always do.' 'Then we deal with it,' Viktor said, 'like before.' There was a pause after that, a shared memory, unspoken but understood. Dealing with it had not been simple or clean. Anya shifted her weight slightly, the wooden floor creaking beneath her boots. Viktor noticed her then. "You seen anything out by your place?" he asked. Anya met his gaze. "Tracks," she said. "Fresh?" She nodded. "Big ones." Viktor exhaled slowly. "Then it started." Someone near the window muttered, "We should set traps before they get bold." Another voice followed, sharper, "Or we wait until they take something first." The conversation built from there, measured, practical, focused on prevention, not panic. Anya listened until there was nothing new being said. Then she set her coins on the counter, took her flour, and stepped back outside. The cold had deepened by the time she reached home, not enough to freeze the ground solid, but enough to settle into the edges of things, into the wood of the cabin, into the water in the bucket she had left earlier, into her hands. She placed the flour on the table and moved to the stove, feeding it a small piece of wood, watching as the flame caught and grew. The cabin warmed slowly. It always did. Nothing in that place happened quickly. Not heat, not time, not thoughts. Anya removed her coat and hung it by the door, her movements quiet, practiced. She had lived there long enough for everything to feel familiar, but not long enough for it to feel permanent. That was the difference. Some people built lives that settled. Others built lives that held. Her life held. For now. She heard the wolves that night. Not clearly, not close, but enough. A low, distant sound carried across the valley, slipping through the cracks in the walls, threading itself into the quiet of the room. Anya sat at the table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had already begun to cool. She did not move, did not react, just listened. There was something uneven in the sound, not the strong, layered call of a full pack, something thinner, broken in places. She frowned slightly. "That's not right," she murmured. Wolves did not sound like that unless something was wrong, injured, separated, or desperate. She set the cup down. The sound came again, fainter this time, then gone. The silence that followed felt heavier than the noise itself. Anya remained where she was for a long moment. Then she stood, crossed the room, and checked the latch on the door. Secure, as it always was. Still, she stayed there a little longer than necessary. The next morning the tracks were closer, not along the ridge this time, lower, cutting across the narrow stretch of land just beyond her cabin. Anya crouched beside them, her breath slow, her eyes following the path they took. There were more now, at least 4, maybe 5. One set dragged slightly, not clean, not even. She reached out, brushing away a thin layer of frost. The impression beneath was deeper, heavier, injured, she thought, or weak. She stood slowly, her gaze moving toward the tree line. It sat quiet, still, watching in the way forests always seem to watch, even when nothing moved within them. "You shouldn't be this close," she said softly. The words held no fear, just observation. A line had been crossed, not aggressively, but clearly, and lines once crossed rarely moved back on their own. By midday the wind had picked up, not strong, but steady, enough to carry scent, enough to carry sound. Anya worked outside, stacking what little firewood she had left, her movements efficient, her attention divided. Half on the task, half on the space beyond it. She noticed the stillness first, the way the birds had gone quiet, the way the usual small movements in the trees had faded. Then a sound, close, not a howl, not a call, something else, a low, strained exhale. Anya froze. Her hand tightened around the piece of wood she was holding. The sound came again, from the edge of the trees. She set the wood down slowly, wiped her hands against her coat, and turned. She did not rush. That was not her way. Rushing led to mistakes, and mistakes this far from help carried consequences that stayed. She walked toward the tree line with measured steps, her eyes scanning, her body alert without appearing tense. The snow thinned near the edge, revealing patches of frozen ground beneath. The tracks were clearer here, deeper, more uneven, and then she saw it. A shape, low against the ground, partially hidden by shadow and snow. At first it did not move. For a moment Anya thought it was already over. Then a slight shift, barely visible, but enough. She stepped closer, careful, quiet. The shape resolved into form, fur, gray, darkened in places by ice, and something thicker, a wolf, lying on her side, one leg twisted unnaturally beneath her, and pressed close against her body, 2 small shapes, cubs. Anya stopped a few feet away. The world seemed to narrow around that single point. The wind softened, the sounds faded, leaving only the slow, uneven breath of the animal before her. "Well," she said quietly, "there you are." The wolf's eye opened, clouded, tired but aware. It fixed on her, not with strength, not with threat, just presence. The cubs shifted slightly, small movements beneath their mother's body, alive, but not for long, not out here, not like this. Anya felt something settle in her chest, not sudden, not sharp, something older, quieter, the kind of knowing that does not ask permission. "You won't last the night," she said. It was not cruel, just true. The wolf did not react, could not, but her eye remained open, watching. Anya glanced back toward her cabin, then back at the wolf. The distance had not changed, but it felt different now, longer, heavier, filled with consequence. "They'll tell me to leave you," she murmured. She could already hear it. Victor, the others, practical voices, reasonable ones. Wild things stayed wild, danger stayed distant. You did not carry it into your home. Anya looked down at the cubs again, at the way they pressed closer, searching for warmth that was already fading, then back at the wolf, at that single, steady eye, and she nodded once, as if agreeing with something that had already been decided. "This is a bad idea," she said. No one argued, not the wind, not the trees, not the wolf. Anya stepped forward anyway. Anya did not reach for the cubs first. She had seen enough of the world to understand one simple thing. A mother, even at the edge of death, does not allow anything near her young without reason. So she stopped just short of the wolf, her boots pressing lightly into the frozen ground, her hands at her sides, her breathing steady. "I'm not here to take them," she said. Her voice was low, not soft in comfort, just careful, measured. The wolf's eye remained fixed on her. There was no strength in it, no warning, but it was not empty either. It was watching, waiting, deciding in whatever way an animal decides such things. Anya lowered herself slowly, her knees bending with controlled effort, every movement deliberate, no sudden shifts, no reaching. "I just need to see," she added. The wind moved lightly through the trees behind her, carrying the faint smell of snow and something older beneath it. Cold, still. The wolf did not react as Anya moved closer. That, more than anything, told her how little time remained. A healthy animal would have shown teeth, would have tried to rise, would have made a decision. This one could only watch. Anya extended her hand, not touching. Not yet. Waiting. A long moment passed. Then, the wolf's head shifted slightly, barely noticeable, but enough. Permission, or the absence of resistance. Sometimes they were the same thing. Anya exhaled quietly and closed the remaining distance. Her fingers met fur. It was stiff with ice, tangled with frozen blood, but beneath it, warmth, faint, fading, still there. "Still holding on," she murmured. Her hand moved carefully along the wolf's side, feeling the rise and fall of breath. Uneven, too slow. She shifted slightly, angling her body to see the injured leg. It was worse up close. The limb lay twisted beneath her, caught at an angle that suggested more than a simple break. There were marks around it. Metal, she thought. A trap. Old. Left behind. Forgotten by whoever had set it. Not forgotten by what it had caught. Anya's jaw tightened. "That explains it," she said quietly. The wolf made a faint sound, not a growl. Something lower, something that lived between pain and breath. "I know," Anya replied. Her tone did not change. She reached into her coat and pulled out a strip of cloth she had wrapped there earlier that morning. Not for this, not exactly, but she had learned to carry small things that might become necessary. "You're not going to like this," she said. The wolf's eye flickered. Anya took that as acknowledgement. She brushed away some of the snow packed around the leg, her movements slow, precise. The contact drew another strained sound from the wolf. Anya paused, waited, then continued. The metal was still there, half buried beneath ice and fur. Rust had settled into it, frozen in place. She studied it for a moment, measured the angle, the tension. If she pulled too quickly, she would make it worse. If she did nothing, it would end here. Anya placed one hand gently against the wolf's side, grounding, steadying. Then she reached for the trap. "This is where it gets worse before it gets better," she said. Not to comfort, just to say it out loud. Her fingers worked against the frozen metal, forcing it open inch by inch. It resisted, then gave slightly. The wolf's body tensed as much as it could. A low sound escaped her. Anya didn't stop. "Almost," she murmured. One more shift, one more pull. The trap released. The leg slipped free. The wolf's body went still again, the tension draining as quickly as it had come. Anya exhaled slowly. "All right," she said. "That's done." She moved quickly now, wrapping the cloth around the leg not to heal it, but to hold it together, to buy time. That was all she was doing, buying time, nothing more, nothing less. The cubs stirred, small movements, weak. One let out a faint sound. Anya's eyes shifted to them. They were smaller than she expected, too small for the cold they were in, too quiet. She reached toward one, hesitating only briefly before lifting it. It barely reacted, its body light, fragile, like something not meant to last. Anya brought it close to her chest immediately, tucking it inside her coat. The second followed. Same weight, same weakness. She held them both there, adjusting her coat to trap what little warmth she had. The movement drew the wolf's attention again. That eye, still watching. Anya met it. "I'm not leaving them here," she said. No apology, no hesitation. "They won't survive it." The wolf didn't move, but she didn't resist either. That was enough. Anya nodded once. "I'll come back for you." The words came without planning. A statement, or a promise. She wasn't sure yet which. Standing was harder this time. Her balance shifted with the added weight, her body slower to respond. She steadied herself, adjusted her grip, then turned toward the path back to her cabin. The distance felt different now, longer, more complicated. She took a step, then another. The cubs were quiet against her, too quiet. "Stay with me," she murmured. The wind picked up slightly as she reached the edge of the trees, pushing against her side, testing her footing. She leaned into it and kept moving, because there was no version of this where she turned back. Not anymore. Halfway to the cabin she heard it, a sound behind her, low, weak, but there. Anya stopped. Her eyes closed briefly, not out of fear, out of understanding. She didn't turn around, because she knew what she would see, and she knew what it would ask of her. "I said I'd come back," she said quietly. The wind carried the words away. The sound behind her faded, or she stopped hearing it. It didn't matter which. She adjusted her hold on the cubs and kept walking, step by step, breath by breath, until the cabin came into view, small, distant, possible. By the time she reached the door, her hands had gone numb, her arms ached from holding them close. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air felt different immediately, not warm, but less cold, less final. She closed the door behind her and moved toward the table without stopping. The cubs were placed down gently, wrapped, covered, protected, for now. Anya stood there for a moment, her hands resting on the edge of the table, her head lowered slightly. Her breath slowed. Her body caught up to what she had just done. Then she lifted her head, looked at them, then toward the door, toward the forest beyond it. "I'm not finished," she said. And this time, she meant it. Anya did not wait long. Not long enough for the fire to fully catch. Not long enough for her hands to stop shaking. Just long enough to know the cubs were breathing. That was all she allowed herself. She wrapped them tighter, placed them closer to the stove, then turned back to the door. Some decisions don't grow clearer with time. They grow heavier, and if you wait too long, they settle into something you can no longer lift. The cold felt sharper the second time, as if it recognized her now, as if it understood she had already taken something from it. Anya stepped into it anyway. The path she had made was already fading, half swallowed by drifting snow. Still she followed what remained, because she knew where she was going, even if she didn't know what would be left when she got there. The forest was quieter now, not still, just emptied. The kind of silence that follows after something has already been decided. She moved faster this time, not careless, but without hesitation, because hesitation had no place left in this. When she reached the wolf, she did not stop, did not stand at a distance. She went straight to her and crouched, her breath unsteady now, her hands moving before thought could interfere. "You're not dying here," she said. The words came out firmer than before, not a question, not an observation, a refusal. The wolf's eye opened again, faint but aware, still there. "Good," Anya murmured. "Then we're not too late." She slipped her arms beneath the wolf, ignoring the immediate strain, the way her muscles resisted, the way her balance shifted. This time she did not test the weight. She simply lifted. The effort hit her all at once, sharp, demanding, her breath caught, her body tightening as it adjusted to something it wasn't built to carry. Still, she held on. "You don't get to stop now," she said under her breath. Whether she meant the wolf or herself, it didn't matter. She turned and began to walk. The distance stretched, longer than before, heavier, each step slower, less certain. The wolf's weight pulled against her arms, against her back, against everything that was already beginning to give. Snow shifted beneath her boots. Once, twice, she faltered. But she did not fall, because falling would end it, and she knew that. In the quiet, certain way people know things when there's no one left to ask. By the time the cabin came into view, her breath had broken into something uneven. Her arms trembled, her legs threatened to stop, but she kept moving. Because stopping was not an option she allowed herself, not anymore. She reached the door, pushed it open with what little strength remained, and stepped inside. The warmth met her again, soft, uncertain, but there. Anya lowered the wolf beside the fire with slow, careful movements, as if the ground itself might reject her if she rushed. The wolf did not resist, did not move, just breathed, still breathing. The cub stirred faintly at the sound, alive, waiting. Anya looked at all three of them, then sank back slightly, her strength finally slipping away. Not all at once, just enough to feel it, enough to understand what it had cost. "They would have told me to leave you," she said quietly. The fire cracked softly in front of her. No answer came. None was needed. She nodded once, her voice softer now. "They would have been right." A pause. Then, "I still didn't." Outside, the cold continued, unchanged, unmoved. But inside, something had shifted. Not loudly, not in a way that could be explained. Just enough to matter. And sometimes, that is all that ever happens, and all that ever needs to.